I dropped my husband off at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, thinking it was just another one of his business trips. The terminal lights were almost painfully bright that Thursday night, and exhaustion clung to me in a way sleep never seemed to fix. It was the kind of bone-deep tiredness that comes from months of carrying something heavy without knowing exactly what that something was. Marcus stood beside me, looking every bit the polished executive he loved people to believe he was. His tailored gray suit, the leather briefcase, the cologne I'd given him on his last birthday, everything about him was curated, intentional. To strangers, we were the picture of success, the thriving black couple. Him climbing corporate ladders, me supporting from behind the scenes. If only they knew how fragile that picture really was. Beside me stood my 6-year-old son, Mason, my entire world. Normally, he was a quiet observer, the kind of child who watched more than he spoke, but tonight he felt different, still, tense. His small hand gripped mine a little too tightly, and every time I glanced down, he was already staring up at me, as if waiting for something awful to happen. This meeting in Chicago is crucial, babe, Marcus said, giving me a hug that looked affectionate to anyone watching but felt rehearsed against my body. 3 days. I'll be back before you know it. Hold down the fort for me. All right, hold down the fort. He always said that. As if my role in our marriage was simply to keep things running while he built a life that rarely seemed to include me. I smiled the way I was expected to. We'll be fine, I said, though Mason squeezed my hand again as if begging me not to say it. Marcus crouched down in front of him, placing both hands on Mason's little shoulders. To outsiders, he played the part of devoted father flawlessly. You take care of Mama for me, he said. Mason didn't respond. He just nodded with wide, searching eyes. There was something in that stare, something too old, too fearful for a 6-year-old, something I didn't yet understand. Marcus kissed Mason's forehead, then mine. Love you both. See you soon. He turned and walked toward TSA, disappearing into the crowd. When he was out of sight, I exhaled. Come on, baby. I murmured, let's go home. We walked through the concourse toward the exit, the sound of rolling suitcases echoing around us. People rushed around, returning from trips or starting new ones, all living lives that at least tonight seemed simpler than mine. Mason was quiet, too quiet. You okay, sweetheart? I asked. He didn't answer until we reached the automatic doors leading outside. Suddenly, Mason stopped walking. Stopped dead. I turned, confused. Mason? He looked up at me with eyes so terrified they made my stomach twist. Mama, he whispered. Can't go back home. My heart stumbled. What do you mean? Of course we're going home. It's late. He shook his head hard, tears glistening. Mama, please, believe me this time. The words this time cut deep, because I knew exactly what he meant. A week earlier, he had told me he'd seen the same strange car parked outside our house 3 nights in a row. I told him it was a coincidence. A few days later, he said he overheard Marcus whispering angrily in his office about solving the problem once and for all. I told him not to listen to adult conversations. I had brushed off every warning, convincing myself he had misunderstood. What happened? Mason, I asked, kneeling so we were eye level. He leaned closer, his voice breaking. This morning I woke up early. I went downstairs for water and heard Daddy on the phone. He said something bad was going to happen tonight. He said he needed to be far away when it did. He said we wouldn't be in his way anymore. My blood turned cold. Mason, are you sure? He nodded, crying now. His voice sounded scary. Mama, not like Daddy. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to say he imagined it. But something inside me cracked open memories I had buried under excuses. Marcus increasing my life insurance policy for security. Marcus insisting all our assets be moved solely into his name for tax purposes. Marcus snapping when I mentioned going back to work. The late night whispering phone calls. The stranger's car parked on our street. All the pieces I ignored suddenly locked together. Okay. I breathed. I believe you. Relief washed over his face, but fear quickly returned. What do we do? I didn't know. I only knew one thing. We weren't going home. Let's get to the car, I said. We'll figure it out. We walked across the dimly lit parking deck to our silver SUV, another purchase Marcus insisted on for safety. The irony stung. I strapped Mason in, then myself. My hands shook so badly I dropped the keys twice. On the drive, I didn't take our usual route. Instead, I stopped on a parallel street where thick oak trees hid us but still gave me a view of our house. Everything looked normal, quiet, peaceful, but peace can be the biggest lie. I turned off the engine. We're just going to watch for a little while, I whispered, just to be sure. Mason nodded, his small hands gripping his dinosaur backpack for comfort. The minutes dragged. 10:10 p.m., 10:15. At 10:17, doubt crept in. What if I was overreacting? What if Mason misunderstood? What kind of mother spies on her own home? Mason's voice trembled. Look. A dark van turned onto our street. No plates. Tinted windows. Moving slowly too slowly. It stopped in front of our house. Two men got out. Hoodies. Gloves. No hesitation. The taller one pulled something from his pocket. Not a tool. Not a crowbar. A key. He unlocked our front door as if it were his own. My breath shattered. Only 3 people had a key. Marcus, me, and the spare locked in his office. Mama, how do they have a key? Mason whispered. I had no answer, only terror. We watched the men slip inside, flashlights cutting across the windows. Then the smell hit, gasoline, and smoke. A glow flickered in the living room window orange. Growing, alive, fire, no. The words slipped out of me before I even realized it. Flames were rising fast behind the curtains, turning the living room window into a deep orange square that felt like it was staring back at me. My breath caught as I reached for the door handle, pure instinct pushing me to run toward the house that held everything, every memory, every trace of the life I thought we had. But before I could open the car door, Mason lunged forward and grabbed my arm. Mama, no, they're still inside, his voice small. Terrified, snapped me back to reality. He was right. I couldn't go running toward men who had come with keys and gasoline. I couldn't leave my son alone in the car. The fire grew louder, crackling as it consumed the downstairs. Black smoke began to seep from the eaves. Windows glowed hotter, brighter, and in seconds, the fire reached the staircase inside, the one that led to Mason's room. I covered my mouth with my trembling hand. Oh God, oh God. Mama, Mason whispered. I pulled him close, clutching him so tightly he buried his face in my shirt. I didn't know how long we stayed like that, shaking in the dark, watching our world burn, the house we decorated together, the kitchen where Mason said his first full sentence, the porch where I drank coffee on the slow Sunday mornings. All of it was turning into ash, beautiful, agonizing ash. A siren wailed in the distance, then another. Someone must have seen the flames and called 911. Fire trucks barreled down the street, lights reflecting off the neighborhood windows. Just seconds before they arrived, the van sped away without its headlights on, disappearing into the night like it had never been there. Mason cried silently against my chest. I pulled him into the front seat and held him. Rocking him though my own legs were shaking uncontrollably. We should have been in there, I whispered. The truth of that sentence hit me so hard I felt sick. If I hadn't believed my son, if I had gone home like I planned, we would have been asleep in our beds. Those men would have walked in with the key my husband gave them, and we would have never woken up. My stomach lurched. I opened the door just enough to lean out and vomit onto the pavement. Tears blurred everything around me. I wiped my mouth with the back of my sleeve, shaking so badly I could barely close the door. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Marcus. Hey babe, just landed. Hope you and Mason are sleeping well. Love you guys. See you soon. I stared at the message until the words blurred. Once, twice, 3 times. My hands went numb. He knew. Of course he knew. He was building his alibi while our home burned with the intention of us inside it. He would have returned tomorrow as the grieving husband and devastated father, crying into cameras about how cruel life could be. He would have held memorial services and accepted condolences. He would have collected my life insurance, paid off his debts, and moved on, free. That was the word Mason overheard. I'm finally going to be free. Free of me, free of our son. My entire body went cold. Mason watched me with wide eyes, sensing everything even if he didn't understand the details. He reached for my hand again, and somehow his tiny grip anchored me just enough to breathe. We can't stay here. I said, "Where do we go?" He whispered. I had no family in Atlanta. All our friends were also Marcus's friends. The police wouldn't believe a story like this without proof, not when the only witness was a traumatized 6-year-old. Marcus had a clean reputation, money, influence. He knew exactly how to make himself look like the victim. But then another memory surfaced, soft and unexpected. My father, Lawrence, lying in his hospital bed 2 years before he passed. He had reached for my hand, squeezed it weakly, and handed me a business card. "Ariana," he whispered, "if you're ever in trouble, and I mean real trouble, you call this woman. Don't ask questions. Just call." At the time, I thought he was being overprotective, still unsure about Marcus even after years of marriage. I remember feeling almost offended, but my father had always been intuitive in ways I wasn't. The card was still in my wallet. Cassandra Cass Okafor, attorney at law. I took out my wallet with trembling fingers and found the card. The ink slightly faded around the edges. I dialed the number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. On the fourth ring, a calm, raspy voice answered. "This is Attorney Okafor, Miss Okafor," I said, trying not to break. "My name is Ariana Vance. My father was Lawrence Vance. He told me to call you if..." My voice cracked. "If I ever needed help." A pause, then a shift in her tone, firm and alert. "Ariana, your father trusted me. Tell me where you are." "My house was just set on fire," I whispered. "My husband, he tried to kill us." Another heavy pause. Then she said, "Are you safe right now?" "Yes, for the moment. Can you drive?" I looked at Mason, curled against me, still shaking. "Yes, good. Write down this address. Come immediately. Do not go anywhere else." I ended the call and put the car in drive. Mason watched me through the dim glow of the dashboard. "Mama, are we going to be okay?" I reached back and squeezed his knee gently. "We will be, baby. I promise you. Mama's here." But inside, I wasn't sure of anything except that for the first time in my life, I was afraid of the man I married. The drive to attorney Cassandra Cass Okafor's office felt longer than it was. Atlanta's streets were mostly empty at that hour, washed in orange streetlights that flickered through my windshield like warnings. Mason had finally fallen asleep in the back seat, his cheek pressed against his dinosaur backpack. Exhaustion had pulled him under, but every so often his small body twitched, like he was still running in his dreams. Cass's office was tucked into an old brick building in the sweet Auburn district, quiet, unassuming, the kind of place you'd overlook unless you were looking for it. There were no flashy signs, just a metal plaque that read C, Okafor, Legal Counsel. The hallway light inside flickered, humming softly like an old radio. Before I even reached for the buzzer, the door opened. A woman in her early 60s stood there, silver curls pulled into a low bun, glasses hanging from a thin chain. She wore a simple blouse and jeans, but her eyes sharp. Steady missed nothing. "Ariana," she asked. "Yes?" My voice shook more than I wanted it to. "Come in, quickly." She locked the door behind us with 3 different deadbolts. For a moment, I simply stood there, holding Mason still asleep in my arms. I felt exposed, fragile, like one wrong move would shatter me into pieces too small to gather. "There's a sofa in the corner," Cass said gently. "You can lay him there. Blanket is on the chair." I placed Mason down carefully and tucked the blanket around him. His lashes were still wet from crying. When I turned back, Cass was already pouring 2 mugs of coffee. "Sit," she said, motioning to the chair across from her desk. "Tell me everything, from the beginning." I opened my mouth, and the story poured out of me messy, trembling, but whole. The airport, Mason's whispered warning, watching strangers unlock my home with a key only Marcus could have given them, the flames, the text message pretending nothing was wrong, and the sickening realization that my husband had planned for us to die. Cass didn't interrupt, not once. She watched me like someone reading between the lines, absorbing every detail. When I finally finished, she leaned back slowly. For a moment, she said nothing. "Then your father told me this might happen." Those words made my breath catch. My father suspected Marcus Lawrence was a perceptive man, she replied. "He told me he didn't trust your husband. Said Marcus's ambition felt hungry, the kind of hunger that devours everything around it." I looked down at my hands. My father had tried to warn me, and I, blind in my love, ignored it. Cass stood and walked to a tall filing cabinet. She unlocked the bottom drawer and pulled out a thick folder. "Your father asked a private investigator to look into Marcus 3 years ago. Quietly. He didn't want to upset you unless there was something concrete." I held my breath as she placed the folder in front of me. Inside were photos, documents, bank statements, evidence of a life I never knew Marcus lived. "Ariana," Cass said gently, "your husband has been drowning in debt. Serious debt, loan sharks, underground casinos, unlicensed lenders. He owes nearly $500,000. My mouth went dry. "But his business has collapsed 2 years ago," she said. "He's been using your mother's inheritance to keep himself afloat." I felt punched. My mother's money, all of it gone. Cass answered without flinching. "And he doesn't have time to repay what he owes." I stared at the table, unable to breathe for a moment. "He increased your life insurance policy recently, didn't he?" My head jerked up. "A few months ago?" "He said it was for family security." Cass nodded grimly. "If you died in an accident, Marcus would receive $2.5 million, more than enough to clear his debts and buy himself a clean start." A cold tremor spread down my spine. "So the fire was the cleanest method," she finished. "Harder to trace, easier to stage as an electrical fault, and Marcus made sure he was out of state to secure his alibi." I looked over at Mason sleeping on the sofa. The blanket had slipped slightly, and I quietly tucked it back under his chin. His small chest rose and fell with each tiny, fragile breath. Cass's voice softened. "Your son saved your life tonight." I swallowed hard. I should have listened sooner. "What matters," she said, "is that you listened when it counted." I pulled myself back together. "What do I do now? I have no home. My ID was inside. All my money, everything was in that house." "You have me," Cass said simply. "And right now, the most important thing you have is time before Marcus realizes his plan failed." I frowned. "He'll figure it out soon. The fire department won't find any bodies." Cass nodded. "Exactly. And when they don't, Marcus will panic. Panicked men make mistakes. We're going to use that." I blinked. "Use his panic, yes." She folded her hands on the desk. "But to do that, we need proof, undeniable proof he planned this. Something from that house. Something he wouldn't have destroyed." Her gaze sharpened. "Ariana, do you know the combination to Marcus's office safe?" I hesitated. "It's his birthday. He thought it was clever." "It's predictable," Cass said, "which may be to our advantage. He keeps documents there. Maybe a burner phone, pay stubs, agreements, anything that ties him to whoever he hired." I stared at her. "You want me to go back?" "Not now," she said calmly. "Tonight, the police will swarm the house. But tomorrow, Once Marcus leaves the scene because he won't sleep in a burned shell, we'll retrieve what we need. My pulse quickened. Break into my own home. You're not breaking in, she corrected. Your name is still on the deed, and this isn't just about survival. Ariana, it's about justice. From the sofa, Mason stirred. Mama. I hurried to him, smoothing his hair as he blinked awake. We're safe, I whispered. Go back to sleep, sweetheart. Cass watched him with unexpected tenderness. Then she looked back at me. Get some rest. Tomorrow, everything changes. I managed to rest for maybe 3 hours in the small back room Cass prepared for Mason and me, but it felt like minutes. When I finally opened my eyes, it took a few seconds to remember where I was and why. Then the memory of flames, the smell of gasoline, and Marcus's text hit me like a punch to the chest. Mason was curled beside me, his little hand still gripping my shirt, even in sleep. Cass knocked gently before pushing the door open. Ariana, she said, turn on the TV, channel 2. My stomach tightened. On the screen was our home, what was left of it. Blackened beams, collapsed walls, and piles of steaming rubble. Firefighters were still dousing hot spots. Smoke drifted into the sky like pieces of our old life slipping away. Then the camera cut to Marcus. He'd just stepped out of an Uber at the scene, wearing the same clothes from yesterday, now wrinkled like he'd slept in them. His hair was messy, his face unshaven, and his expression gaudy. His expression was one he must have rehearsed in the mirror. Wide eyes, trembling lips, a slow shake of the head, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He shoved past the reporters and screamed at one of the fired captains. My wife, my son, for God's sake. Someone tell me they weren't inside, please. His voice cracked at all the right places, to anyone watching. He looked like a desperate, grieving husband. But I knew better. I leaned closer to the screen. Marcus kept glancing around, not searching for us, but checking for cameras to catch his anguish. His shoulders shook, but his eyes stayed dry. And when a firefighter approached him, Marcus asked the one question that shattered any doubt in me. Did you find the bodies yet? Not did you find them? Not. Are they alive? Not even where are they? Did you find the bodies? Cass turned off the TV. He's performing. And soon he'll start worrying. You think he'll realize we escaped? He will, she said, especially once the fire investigators report they didn't find human remains. You have a small window before Marcus panics and starts looking for you. Mason sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. When he saw the blank TV screen, his face clouded. He's lying, Mason whispered. He's pretending he cares. I pulled him into my arms. I know, sweetheart. Cass sat on the edge of the bed. Ariana, we don't have much time. I need to know, does Marcus keep anything else hidden? Any documents? Devices? Cash? I thought for a moment. The safe in his office? Yes, and Mason. Mason looked up at me. You told me once that Daddy hides things. Do you remember where? He nodded slowly. In the floor, under the loose board near his desk. The one he thinks I don't know about. Cass raised an eyebrow. Smart kid. Mason shrugged in that small, shy way of his. I noticed stuff, and that may save us again, Cass said. My fear flared, but I don't want him anywhere near that house. Cass leaned forward. Then you'll have to guide me to it. But Ariana, the truth is children see what adults overlook. If he's noticed things you haven't, it may be the key to finding the proof we need. Mason squeezed my hand. I can help. Mama, part of me wanted to refuse, to shield him, to keep him far away from anything that reminded him of fire and terror. But another part, the part that knew we had no home, no evidence, no protection, understood we were out of options. Cass placed a hand on my shoulder. This ends tonight. Marcus will leave the scene eventually. He'll check into a hotel. He'll want to appear devastated but cooperative. That gives us a small window to get in and out. We take only what's necessary. Do we have backup? I asked. I have a contact watching the neighborhood cameras. Cass said, and I'll stay outside the house to keep lookout. But inside, it has to be you. My pulse quickened. How do we even get in? The whole place is destroyed. The back kitchen entrance survived enough for access, Cass replied. Firefighters often focus on areas that didn't completely collapse. I took a steadying breath. If we find proof. What then? Then we take it to the most trustworthy detective. I know Detective Sam Hightower. He's clean. He can't be bought by someone like Marcus. I nodded, feeling resolve settle inside me like stone. Then we do it, tonight. The day crawled by, painfully slow. From Cass's office, we watched everything through the neighborhood security feeds. Her contact managed to access. Fire investigators combed the ruins. Police officers interviewed neighbors. Marcus gave 3 different interviews, repeating the same trembling script, my family. I just want them found. I can't breathe not knowing. Sometimes he buried his face in his hands, shaking dramatically. Other times, when he thought no one was watching, his mask slipped, his eyes darting, jaw clenched, panic flickering beneath the surface. Near sunset, Cass pointed at the monitor. There, he's leaving. Sure enough, Marcus climbed into a police cruiser that was taking him back to the station for another statement. He wouldn't return tonight. Cass stood and began gathering supplies, dark clothing, gloves, small flashlights. She handed a set to me, then crouched down and helped Mason into his. I swallowed the guilt rising in my throat. Mason, I said softly. If at any point you're scared, I'm already scared, he whispered. But I want to help. Cass looked at me. He's braver than most adults I know. We drove toward the neighborhood, but parked 2 blocks away, near a spot Cass knew had no cameras. The 3 of us slipped through a narrow opening between hedges, then climbed the low security wall behind the property. The air still smelled of burnt wood and wet ash. My stomach twisted as we approached the charred skeletal frame that used to be our home. Cass placed a hand on my arm. 20 minutes. In and out. I'll stay here and watch for movement. Mason slid his hand into mine. Together, we stepped into what remained of our lives. The kitchen door groaned as I pushed it open. The burned wood, swollen from the water firefighters, had sprayed hours earlier. Inside, the smell of wet ash and smoke hit me like a wave. The walls were blackened, cabinets melted into strange shapes, and the tile floor was slick with soot. It didn't look like a home anymore. It looked like the aftermath of a war. Mason tightened his grip on my hand but said nothing. His wide eyes scanned everything, absorbing more than any child ever should. Stay close to me, I whispered. We navigated through what used to be our kitchen, stepping over fallen beams and shattered dishes. Each room we passed was worse than the last. The living room where Mason had opened Christmas presents was barely recognizable, only the metal frame of the sofa remained. The hallway walls were cracked and dripping, and the air was so thick with smoke particles that my throat burned with every breath. But the staircase was still standing. Barely. The wooden steps were charred but intact enough to climb. We can't go up there, I murmured, more to myself than to Mason. Mama, he whispered back. Daddy's office didn't burn all the way. I saw it from the window. I looked at him, surprised. Even in the worst night of his life, he had noticed details, my brave, observant boy. Okay, I said softly. We go carefully. Each step creaked under our weight, threatening to give way. Mason moved lightly, almost silently, while I tried to place my feet where the wood looked least damaged. When we reached the second floor, the hallway was dark except for faint moonlight coming through the broken window at the far end. Marcus's office door was partially swollen, but I forced it open with my shoulder. The office was one of the few rooms that hadn't fully burned. The fire had licked the edges of the walls, scorched the ceiling, and destroyed some shelves, but the core of the room remained. Papers littered the floor, some charred at the corners. The rug had melted, and the smell of burned electronics hung in the air. But the safe was still there. Embedded in the wall waiting. I stepped toward it and brushed away the ash around the keypad. My fingers shook as I entered Marcus's birthday. For a moment, nothing happened, just a soft, oppressive silence. Then the light blinked green. Beep. Unlocked. Inside was a stack of cash, several folders, a manila envelope, and my breath caught a burner phone. A small black device with no markings, evidence, hard evidence. I grabbed everything and stuffed it into the backpack Cass had given me. Mama, Mason whispered urgently from across the room. Over here! He was crouched by the far corner, next to a floorboard he had already lifted with his small hands. My heart twisted. This was where he hid from storms, where he went when he felt scared. No child should have secret places like that. I knelt beside him and looked inside the hiding space. Another burner phone, a black notebook, and a thick white envelope, sealed tightly, all hidden where only Mason would have noticed. I placed everything into the bag. You did so well, I whispered. But before Mason could respond, voices drifted up the staircase. Boss said to check. The fire was supposed to take care of everything. My blood turned to ice. The voices grew louder. Police didn't find bodies. Means something went wrong. Mason looked at me with terror flooding his face. I grabbed him and slipped us both into the office closet, pulling the warped wooden door closed until only a thin sliver of light seeped in. I held Mason against me as footsteps approached. Two shadows entered the room, one tall, one stocky. Flashlights cut through the smoky air. Safe's open, the taller one muttered. It wasn't like that before. The other knelt beside it. Money's gone. Documents too. And look, footprints. Small ones. A kid's. Mason stiffened in my arms. My breath came in shallow. Controlled bursts. If I let myself panic, Mason would panic too. You think the wife and kid got out? The tall man asked. They're alive, the other whispered. And the boss is gonna lose his damn mind. There was a pause. Then the taller man said, Call Marcus. Tell him someone was here. My heart slammed against my ribs. If they called Marcus now, he'd know instantly that I was alive and that I had taken the evidence. I was trapped, unarmed, holding my terrified child, and two men were standing just feet away. Then suddenly, a scream ripped through the night. A woman's scream, high-pitched, terrified. The men froze. What the hell was that? The stocky one snapped. No clue. But we better check it out. They bolted out of the office. I didn't wait another second. Go, I whispered. Now I scooped Mason into my arms and ran. Down the hallway, down the stairs, through the kitchen door. My legs shook with every step, but adrenaline pushed me forward. Mason buried his face into my shoulder, trusting me completely. Cass was already waiting near the backyard fence, her chest heaving. You screamed, I gasped. Of course I screamed. She said. I needed to draw them out. She helped lift Mason over the wall. Then I climbed after him. The moment my feet hit the ground, Cass grabbed my arm. Did you get it? I held up the backpack, heavy with stolen truth. We got everything. Cass let out a controlled exhale. Good. Because now Marcus knows someone was there. I frowned. How is that good? She gave me a sharp, knowing smile. Because he'll panic. And desperate men panic loudly. We hurried to the car parked 2 blocks away. Only when we were inside with the doors locked did I finally feel the trembling in my hands. Back at the office, we emptied the backpack onto Cass's desk cash. Phones, notebooks, envelopes. Cass picked up the black notebook first. As she flipped it open, her eyes widened. Oh, Ariana, this is better than I hoped. Inside were pages filled with dates, payment amounts, and names, detailed records of Marcus's debts, notes about conversations with loan sharks, references to Derek, and then the page that made my stomach drop. Final solution, Ariana's life insurance. Needs accident, fire recommended. Payment $50,000, half upfront, no V2. I swallowed hard. He wrote everything down, even the plan to kill us. Even the payment, even the date. Why would anyone document this? I whispered. For leverage, Cass said. in case the men he hired tried to turn on him. Criminals do it more often than you'd think. She lifted one of the burner phones. And if we can unlock these, we'll have even more. I looked at the pile of damning evidence spread across the table. For the first time in hours, for the first time maybe in years, I felt hope. Cass wasted no time. She called someone her tech guy, and within an hour, he arrived with a small case of tools, laptop, and cables. He was young, maybe late 20s, with tired eyes and a quiet confidence. Mason watched curiously from the sofa while the man worked on the burner phones, typing quickly, cracking into each device like he'd been born doing it. When the first phone unlocked with a soft tone, Cass leaned forward. "Show us everything," she instructed. The tech guy mirrored the screen onto Cass's computer monitor, and there it was, message after message between Marcus and the men he hired, mostly Derek. "Needed done while I'm out of state. Solid alibi required. Use fire. No witnesses. Kid 2, no loose ends. Both. Payment half now. Half after confirmation." My breath caught in my throat. Seeing the words written out, cold and transactional, was worse than hearing Mason's fearful whisper at the airport. This was direct, calculated, terrifying. Cass's eyes hardened. This alone could put Marcus away for decades. The tech moved on to the second phone. This one was password protected with a longer code, but it cracked eventually. And just like before, there were messages, timelines Marcus had confirmed, payment instructions, details about the spare house key he arranged to give Derek. A key meant for murder. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. He really wanted us gone. Cass nodded slowly. Ariana knew he was planning this for months, maybe longer. A wave of heat ran under my skin, anger mixing with grief. 8 years of marriage, a home, a child. And in the end, all we were to Marcus was a financial solution. Cass closed the notebook and sat back. This is more evidence than I expected, enough to build an airtight case. But we still need to control the moment we present it. You mean the police won't just take this now? She shook her head. Some departments might, some might not. Marcus is connected. He's wealthy. He knows people in places that could make this messy. We need someone who can't be influenced. Detective Hightower, I whispered, remembering the name. Yes, Sam Hightower is known for being straight-laced to a fault. When he takes a case, it's by the book. No shortcuts, no favors. He's the safest path. The tech guy disconnected the devices and nodded. Everything's saved. I made copies on a secure drive. No one can wipe this now. Thank you, Cass said. We may need you again soon. He gave a small salute, packed his equipment, and slipped out into the night. Once the door closed, the room felt unbearably still. Mason lay curled on the sofa again. Exhausted, his small chest rose and fell slowly. I brushed a strand of hair from his forehead, marveling at how peaceful he looked despite everything he had witnessed. Cass crossed her arms and stared at the evidence spread across the table. Ariana, this is enough to bring Marcus down completely, but there's one thing we need to anticipate. My heart tightened. What he's going to realize you're alive. And when he does, he'll reach out, as if on cue. My phone buzzed. I froze. Cass gestured. Let me see it. I handed her the phone, and she stared at the screen. 15 missed calls, 12 messages, all from Marcus. She scrolled through the messages, jaw tightening. Where are you, Ariana? Please, answer me. The police can't find your body. Tell me you're okay. I'm begging you. Please respond. We can fix this. Ariana, I know you're alive. And I know you took what was in the safe. We need to talk. Now. My stomach twisted. The shift in tone was unmistakable, moving from fake concern to thinly veiled threat. He knows, I whispered. Cass set the phone down carefully. Good. Good, yes, she said firmly. Because now he's desperate, and desperate men make mistakes. Mistakes we can use. My heart beat erratically, but Cass's confidence grounded me. What do we do? I asked. We give him what he wants, she said. A conversation. But on our terms. I stared at her. You want me to meet him? Not alone. Never alone, she clarified. The police high tower will be there. Hidden, watching, recording. Marcus will think he's confronting you in private. In reality, he'll be walking straight into a trap. Fear flickered across my chest, cold and sharp. Where do I tell him to meet me? Cass considered this. Then Centennial Olympic Park. The fountains. Public. Open. But with enough space for law enforcement to spread out unnoticed. What time tomorrow morning? Give him enough time to stew in his panic. I swallowed. My throat tight. What if he tries to hurt me? He won't get the chance, Cass said. Not with high towers, people surrounding the area. I looked at Mason again, his small, brave body curled under a blanket. He had saved me. Saved both of us. And now, it was my turn to make sure he never had to be afraid again. I took a breath and picked up my phone. My hands trembled as I typed. Centennial Olympic Park, by the fountain. Tomorrow, 10 a.m.? Come alone. The reply came within seconds. I'll be there. Ariana, things aren't what you think. We just need to talk. Perfect, Cass murmured. I set the phone down and rubbed my arms, chilled despite the warm heater humming in the room. This is really happening, I whispered. Cass placed a steady hand on my shoulder. Yes, and by tomorrow. Ariana, this man will never be able to hurt you or your son again. For the first time since the fire, since the airport, since everything, I believed her. Morning came too early. I barely slept. And when I did drift off, I kept jolting awake, certain I smelled smoke. My nerves felt like they were pulled too tight, as if the weight of the coming confrontation pressed on my chest. Mason woke quietly, rubbing his eyes the way he did when he was trying to be brave. I hugged him longer than usual, breathing in the warmth of his small body. Today would change everything for both of us. Cass entered the room with a calmness I envied. Detective Hightower is ready. His team will set up early at the park. We'll head out in about an hour. My heart clenched. What if Marcus sees them? He won't, Cass said. Plainclothes officers. Familiar faces you'd never suspect, parents with strollers, joggers, vendors, maintenance staff. They'll blend in. And the recording. You'll be wearing a mic. She handed me the device, a tiny button-shaped transmitter. Your jacket collar will hide it perfectly. I nodded, swallowing the anxiety rising in my throat. Cass crouched in front of Mason. Your mom is going to talk to your dad today. But she won't be alone. She'll be surrounded by police officers there to protect her. And you, she added gently, will stay here with me. You'll be safe. Mason looked from her to me, then back again. Mama doesn't have to be near him, right? The way he said him with fear and disappointment tangled into one broke something in me. I'll be okay, I promised. It's the last time I'll ever have to see him. He nodded slowly, trusting me. By 9:30 a.m., I was seated on a bench at Centennial Olympic Park. The morning sun reflected off the interactive fountain, shooting thin streams of water in choreographed bursts. Families walked dogs. Couples sipped coffee. Joggers passed by. It looked so normal, eerily normal, considering why I was there. I wore the jacket Cass gave me with the built-in mic. My palms sweated despite the cool breeze. Detective Sam Hightower approached briefly, pretending to tie his shoe near my bench. You're wired, he murmured without looking at me. I've got officers at all points. The moment he incriminates himself or tries anything physical, we move. If he gets too close, step back. If he puts hands on you, drop to the ground. Understood. I nodded. He stood and walked away like any other passerby. At exactly 1000 a.m., Marcus arrived, He looked disheveled, wrinkled shirt, dark circles under his eyes, jaw clenched like he hadn't slept. For a split second, a tiny part of me wondered if he always looked this human, this flawed, and I had simply been too blinded by love to see it. But then I remembered the fire, the texts, the notebook, the hired men. Any softness in me dissolved. Ariana, he called out, walking quickly toward me. Oh my God, you're alive. He reached out for me, arms open as if expecting a warm reunion. I stepped back. Don't touch me. His expression flickered first confusion, then annoyance masked beneath forced concern. Babe, look. I know how this seems. My voice trembled, not with fear, but with fury. Marcus, I watched two men unlock our door with a key only you could have given them. I watched our home burn. I watched them walk out while flames were still spreading. He glanced around nervously, as if afraid someone might overhear. Ariana, not here. Let's go somewhere private. I'm not going anywhere alone with you. His nostrils flared. I held his gaze. Why did you try to kill me? He ran a hand down his face, pacing in a tight circle. It wasn't, he stopped, searching for the right performance. Ariana, I owe money. Dangerous people. They threatened you. They threatened Mason. I didn't know what else to do. So you decided to kill us first, I shot back. He froze. That doesn't even make sense. Marcus, it does. He whispered harshly. If something happened to you, if it looked accidental, I could have used the insurance money to pay them off. Then I'd have time to fix everything. My stomach dropped. He had said it out loud, clear as day, on a live mic. Detective Hightower's voice sounded faintly in my ear. We have enough. Stand by. But Marcus wasn't done. Ariana, you don't get it. I was trying to protect myself. And you, and Mason. He stepped closer, voice lowering. Now listen. You took things from the safe. I need them back. That notebook isn't something you should have. My chest tightened. Why? Because it shows how much you owe, or because it lists the plan to kill me. His face hardened, slipping into something colder, darker. That notebook, he said quietly, can put me away forever. And the people I owe, they won't stop with me. They'll come after you. After the kid. If you give it to the police, you'll sign your own death sentence. My breath caught. Good. At least it won't be you killing us. His jaw clenched so hard I thought he might crack a tooth. You were always so naive, he hissed. You think I married you for love. You were comfortable. Ariana, your family money made things easy. You were a stepping stone. It hit harder than I expected. He wanted it to. And Mason, I whispered, voice cracking. What was he to you? He scoffed. The kid, he was always weird, too quiet, too observant, a liability, a liability. My hands curled into fists. In my ear, Hightower said, stand by, almost there. Marcus stepped even closer, even. Give me the notebook and the phones. Now, or I swear, he never finished the sentence. Marcus Vance, a voice boomed. Police, don't move. Everything happened at once. 8 officers appeared from different directions. Badges raised. Marcus spun, startled. Then bolted toward the nearest exit. Marcus, stop. Hightower shouted. Marcus didn't stop. He sprinted across the park, shoving people aside. He vaulted over a bench, nearly slipping on the wet pavement around the fountains. Officers chased him, but he had a head start. Then he made a fatal mistake. He ran directly toward me. Before I could react, he grabbed me, yanking me against his chest. I screamed as cold metal pressed to my neck. A knife. He had a knife. Back off, he yelled. Nobody moves. The officers froze. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. The blade dug into my skin, just enough for a thin line of blood to form. Ariana, he whispered in my ear. You should have stayed dead. That was the moment I realized he would kill me. Right here. In front of everyone. Unless something stopped him. And something did. A shot rang out. Sharp. Precise. Marcus screamed. The knife clattered to the ground. He collapsed. Clutching his hand, a sniper had shot the weapon cleanly from his grip. Officers tackled him instantly, cuffing him as he fought and cursed. I dropped to my knees, shaking uncontrollably, sucking in air like someone who had been underwater too long. Detective Hightower knelt beside me. "It's over," he said gently. "You're safe now." For the first time since Mason whispered, "Don't go home." I believed it. In the hours that followed, everything moved in a blur. EMTs checked the cut on my neck, reassuring me it was shallow. They wrapped it carefully while I tried to steady my breathing. The sound of sirens faded as Marcus, now handcuffed, screaming, and thrashing, was shoved into the back of a patrol car. He shouted my name as they closed the door on him. "Ariana, this isn't over. You hear me? You'll pay for this." The officer slammed the door, silencing him. I shivered, but not from fear. The threat felt empty now, like a shadow that had finally lost its source of light. Marcus had nothing left. No control, no secrets, no lies that could save him. Detective Hightower walked toward me with a respectful nod. "You did good today," he said. "You held your ground. You helped us lock down a dangerous man." I swallowed, unsure how to respond. I didn't feel brave. He shook his head. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs to be done despite it." I looked away, my throat tightening. Mason's face flashed in my mind, his small voice saying, "Mama, don't go home." I didn't know where I found the strength today. I only knew that I had needed it for him. Hightower's tone softened. "We'll take your statement at the precinct later, but for now, Cass is waiting nearby to take you home." "Home?" I echoed. The word felt strange. Our home didn't exist anymore. Just ashes and memories. Cass met me a block away from the park, leaning against her car with her arms crossed. When she saw me, relief flickered across her face, something she rarely allowed anyone to see. "You're all right," she breathed. "I'm all right," I managed to say. She opened the passenger door. "Get in. Mason's been asking for you every 5 minutes." The moment I stepped into her office, Mason launched himself at me, wrapping his arms around my waist so tightly he nearly knocked me backward. "Mama," he cried. "I saw the news. I saw police cars. Are you okay?" "He didn't hurt you." "Right, he didn't. I'm okay." "Sweetheart," I whispered, hugging him close. "It's over." Daddy's gone. Mason clung to me, his small body trembling. And for the first time, I allowed myself to break, not in fear, but in release. Tears filled my eyes as I held him. We had survived something unimaginable. We had made it out. Cass gave us a moment before stepping closer. "Ariana," she said quietly, "Hightower wants us at the precinct this afternoon. But Marcus's arrest is solid. With the evidence you collected and the recording from the park, there's no coming back for him." I nodded, wiping my cheeks. "What happens now?" "Now," she said, "we focus on rebuilding. The legal side comes later." The following weeks unfolded like chapters in a book I hadn't expected to read. Marcus was formally charged with attempted murder, arson with intent to defraud, conspiracy, insurance fraud, and several financial crimes tied to his underground dealings. The men he hired, Derek Cole and Ryder, took plea deals in exchange for full cooperation. They provided sworn statements confirming Marcus's involvement, eliminating any doubt that he had orchestrated everything. The trial came faster than I expected, maybe because the evidence was overwhelming, maybe because the DA wanted a clean win, or maybe because, for once, justice didn't drag its feet. I didn't attend the trial. I couldn't bear to sit in the same room with Marcus again, but Cass went every day and updated me afterward. The defense tried everything. She said one evening while we packed Mason's things into boxes provided by a local shelter for families surviving domestic crimes. Temporary insanity, coercion by lenders, stress-induced breakdown. None of it held. She took a sip of her tea. The jury took 3 hours to convict him. What was the sentence, I asked? 25 years? Federal time. No early release. I nodded slowly. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel vindication. What I felt was cleaner, quieter, a closing door. Marcus no longer had the power to touch our lives. In the months that followed, the practical challenges began, replacing documents, opening new accounts, finding a place to stay, insurance policies and legal paperwork for the burned property, trauma counseling for Mason and for me. It was overwhelming, but Cass never left our side. One afternoon, while Mason colored quietly in the corner of her office, Cass set a stack of paperwork on her desk. "I want to talk to you about something," she said. I looked up. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," she said with a rare smile. "I've watched you these past months, the way you advocate for yourself, for Mason, the way you analyze details, the way you challenge people who underestimate you. You have a sharp mind. Ariana, sharper than you realize. Cass, I'm offering you an opportunity," she continued. "Come work with me, learn the legal field. I'll mentor you. There are too many women out there who need someone who understands what they've lived through." Emotion welled in my throat. "I'm not a lawyer." "Not yet," she said. "But you could be." I glanced at Mason. He smiled at me, a missing front tooth showing proudly. For the first time in a long time, my heart warmed. "I want to try," I said softly. And that decision changed the trajectory of my life. The next few years passed with steadier steps. I studied relentlessly, supported by grants and scholarships for survivors. Cass guided me through everything from the admissions essays to the night I passed the bar exam. Mason grew taller, braver, happier. Therapy helped him process the trauma. School helped him find stability. Friends helped him rediscover joy. Every time I felt like quitting, he would say, "Mama, you didn't give up on me, so I won't let you give up on you." He became my strength even when he didn't know it. 5 years after the fire, I sat on the porch of our modest but cozy new home. The morning sun glowed across the yard while Mason, now 11, worked on his math homework at the kitchen table inside. I sipped my coffee and breathed the air fully, without fear. Marcus was a chapter we had closed, a trauma we survived, a wound that had scarred but healed. And Mason, he was the proof that even burned ground can grow something strong. Mama Mason called from inside. "Can I go to Malik's house after lunch?" I smiled. "Be back before 6. Got it, life had finally, beautifully, found a rhythm again. And I knew deep in my bones that we had reclaimed everything Marcus tried to take from us: hope, freedom, a future, and most importantly, each other. Some afternoons, when the day felt unusually quiet, I would find myself standing by the porch railing, looking out across our street and thinking about how far we had come, not just in miles or months, but in the way the world felt around us. 5 years earlier, every shadow made my heart race, every unexpected sound felt like danger. Every silence felt heavy with what Marcus had tried to take from us. But healing sneaks in quietly. It grows slow roots. It changes the way sunlight touches your skin. And before I realized it, the fear that once lived in my bones no longer ruled my life. One Saturday morning, I was grading paperwork for a domestic violence support case, one of the many I handled at Cass's firm now, when Mason stepped onto the porch. He was taller than he had any right to be at 11 years old, skinny but strong, with a confidence that showed in the way he carried himself. He sat down beside me, swinging his legs off the porch like he used to do when he was much smaller. "Mama," he said, "can I ask you something?" I closed the folder and turned to him. "Always." He took a moment, chewing on his lip like he did when a thought felt too big to say aloud. "Are you happy? Like, really happy?" His question caught me off guard, not because I didn't know the answer, but because it came from a boy who once woke up screaming from nightmares of fire and footsteps on hardwood floors. A boy who had seen more in 6 years than many adults ever will. I took a breath. Yes, I said, I am. He leaned his head against my shoulder. I was scared you'd stay sad forever. After everything, I brushed his hair gently. I was sad for a long time, Mason, and it's okay to be sad. But sadness doesn't stay forever unless we let it. We built something new, together. He nodded, taking that in. After a quiet moment, he asked, Do you think about him? I knew who he meant. Sometimes, I admitted, not the way I used to. It's more like remembering a storm. You know it happened. You know how hard it hit. But it doesn't mean the storm is still here. Do you miss him? Mason asked, his voice small but honest. I took his hand. I missed the person I thought he was, not the man he turned out to be. He was quiet for a moment, then whispered, Is it wrong that sometimes I miss him too? My heart softened. No, baby. Missing someone isn't the same as forgiving what they did. You're allowed to have feelings. You're allowed to remember the good moments. And you're allowed to be angry he ruined them. His shoulders relaxed with relief. I think I'm okay now, he said. I think you are too. I smiled. Later that day, Cass called. Her voice came warm, full of pride. Ariana, the Johnson case settled. Protection order granted. Kids are safe. Mother's safe. I closed my eyes, exhaling. That's good. That's really good. This is why we do what we do, Cass said. Your father would be proud. You know. I swallowed around the sudden tightness in my throat. I hope so. I know so, she replied. Enjoy your weekend. You've earned it. After hanging up, I stood at the kitchen counter for a moment, letting everything settle in me. The girl who once stood trembling in an airport parking lot, unsure if she was losing her mind. She felt like another lifetime. I wasn't that woman anymore. I was a mother who fought back, a survivor who rebuilt, a woman who turned her pain into purpose. And I realized something else too. Marcus didn't destroy my life. He only set fire to the one that was too small for who I was becoming. That night, after dinner, Mason and I curled up on the couch to watch a movie. Halfway through, he fell asleep with his head in my lap. The soft glow of the TV flickered across his face, and I brushed my thumb across his cheek the way I used to when he was a baby. He had grown into someone remarkable, curious, thoughtful, brave. And in that quiet moment, I knew something with absolute certainty. Mason saved me. Not just that night, but every day after. Because when you have someone who depends on you, someone who believes in you before you learn to believe in yourself, you learn to rise, Bilarens. You learn to fight. You learn to rebuild even when you think you're too broken to begin again. A soft knock sounded on the front door. Not alarming, not dangerous, just a neighbor dropping off some mail that had been delivered to the wrong box. I thanked them, closed the door, and locked it out of habit. Habit, not fear. For the first time in years, I realized the difference. Later, as I tucked Mason into bed, he stirred and grabbed my hand sleepily. Mama, yes. Sweetheart, thank you for believing me that day. My throat tightened. You saved us, Mason. You saved everything we have now. He smiled, drifting back to sleep. Good night, my hero, he murmured, but the truth was that Child was my hero. My heartbeat steadied as I turned off his light and stepped into the hallway. The house was quiet, warm, safe, our home, built from truth, from love, from grit. No pretenses, no fear, no secrets, just us, a family forged from fire, not destroyed by it. I returned to the porch, letting the cool night air wash over me. Crickets hummed softly. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. The world felt real again. As I looked up at the stars, I realized that sometimes life doesn't just give you a second chance, it hands you the pieces of your old life. and dares you to build something better. And we did. We built something beautiful, something honest, something ours.